What's up guys, Rogue9 here. A new balancing patch has gone live in Rainbow Six Siege, and as is by now tradition, the patch of course also contains a new Jäger Nerf. Looking over the designer notes, I couldn't help but notice that this change is driven by a couple of fundamental mistakes. One looks like a potential mistake in the performance data, and the other is an analytical mistake which, according to the devs, was the driving factor behind the upcoming change. So let's go and take a closer look at this nerf, as in what it is and why it might be completely and utterly flawed. Go! We begin with examining what this nerf is, and then we'll look at the why and how the reasoning presented in the designer notes is flawed. Last season we saw a nerf to Jäger's gadget. Now the devs are once again taking aim at his primary weapon, the Heckler & Koch 416C Carbine. The weapon is receiving a double punch nerf in the form of a magazine size reduction and additional recoil, and before we look at any kind of recoil comparisons, I need to say a word or two on the idea of just fiddling about with the mag capacity, because there is one rule in Rainbow Six Siege that has basically been in place for over 5 years since the very launch of the game, and that is that the magazine capacity of the weapons almost always reflects the capacities these weapons would also have in the real world, and that rule is apparently going right down the drain now. But wait, I hear you cry, this isn't even the first time this trick has been used to make a gun slightly more challenging to use, and you are correct. Back in October of 2019, the Siege devs were looking for a way of decreasing Twitch's popularity a little with a quick and easy tweak, and I believe it was a very stable genius who proposed that the magazine capacity of her F2 assault rifle could be reduced from 30 to 25 rounds. This amazing guy made the argument that not only would it be an easy change that would make Twitch slightly less comfortable to use, but it would also finally address a long-running discrepancy in the game. Since the launch of the game, Twitch's F2 has always been modelled after the FAMAS F1 variant, and as you can see, this gun model crucially featured the straight 25-round magazine rather than the modern curved 30-rounder you will find in the G2 variant of the rifle. Two birds with one stone, I told them. There's your easy little nerf, and finally the gun model will match the capacity. It just made sense. What doesn't make any sense though is reducing the 416's capacity to 25 rounds. The 416 was from the ground up designed as an improvement of the Colt M4, and as such it uses Stanag magazines. These commonly come in 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 or 50 round box magazines, 60 and 100 round casket magazines, or 90, 100 and even up to 150 round drum magazines. Loads of variety to choose from, but 25 just doesn't really exist. I know it's only a small detail, and yes, balancing trumps realism, and yes again, it is of course possible that Jäger's just decided to underload his magazines by putting 25 rounds into the 30 round mags, but for a pernickety hair splitter like me, breaking long established rules like this, it just hurts. I don't like it. But aside from that, it will make the gun just that little bit less comfortable to use, so it will actually achieve the intended balancing goal quite nicely. Now to the recoil. You may have already tested this for yourself or seen someone else do it, so I will be quite brief here. As you can see, for mouse and keyboard users, the first shot recoil of the 416C is increasing a lot, while the vertical jumps for each follow-up shot increased by a little as well. Interestingly, the random horizontal recoil, the part that is actually far more difficult and frustrating to control, seems to be reduced. This becomes really evident once you attach the vertical grip and flash hider, my preferred setup for this gun. The individual bullet impact groups are definitely further spread out vertically, but much more consistent horizontally. For controller players, the changes are basically the same, but of course, the recoil is much less harsh overall. This is what the final comparison looks like without attachments. And here is the vertical grip and flash hider combo for controller users. What do I think of these changes? They look perfectly fine, to be honest, and I think they even make perfect sense. Shooting long bursts with Jäger will require more recoil control from the player, both on PC and on console, but it's nothing that is unmanageable. In addition to that, the 416C is one of the most compact rifle caliber weapons in the game, and as such, it makes perfect sense that a lighter, smaller gun is a bit harder to handle compared to the full-sized rifles using the same ammo. Okay, so that is a brief discussion of what is changing, and it's all quite straightforward. It's the reasons the devs give for making these changes that don't feel right to me. Let's start out by looking at Jäger's performance over the last season for plat-ranked players and above. According to this chart, he is the most picked operator by far, over 90% presence in matches in which he is not banned, and at the same time, he is supposedly the lowest performing defender in the entire game. Literally, the vertical axis on this chart compares the chances of the team winning a round with the operator to winning a round without the operator, and at somewhere below -2%, Jäger is supposedly the lowest performing defender in the game. Lower than Castle, lower than Clash, lower than Warden, or any other garbage tier operator you could possibly pick. Straight off the bat, I find that hard to believe and would almost suggest that there is some kind of mistake in the chart, and that suspicion is amplified when we go down and read about the reasoning the devs give for nerfing Jäger's gun. Our next step is to look at the frag potential of his 416C, which has been performing above average among ARs. How is Jäger above average in terms of his frag potential but still the worst performing defender in the entire game? It makes no sense, so I would definitely question the accuracy of the data provided in the performance chart for the last season. And that aside, the little passage of the dev blog we just read includes a much worse analytical error. They're saying that their decision to attack the 416C is because it is performing above average compared to other ARs. Do you see what the issue here might be? Yes, the 416 is modeled as a rifle in the game, but comparing a primary weapon that is only used by a defender with a group of guns that, apart from Jäger and Wamai, is only used by attackers is the literal real-life version of comparing apples to oranges. Saying that a defender weapon is performing better than attacker weapons is completely meaningless because the roles of the two teams are so different in Rainbow Six Siege. It is a long-established fact that defending is easier than attacking in the game, and this will 100% influence the performance rates of the weapons used by either team. I strongly believe that any conclusions drawn by comparing a weapon on one team to a group of weapons used by the other are flawed to the point of being completely invalid. If you really want to establish how the 416 is performing, you must compare it to the main group of weapons used by the defenders, i.e. the SMGs. In my personal opinion, the entire analytical reasoning behind the Jäger nerf is flawed. I cannot believe that an operator with an outperforming weapon is also the worst performing defender in the game, and using a comparison to attacker weapon performance to assess the gun is just completely the wrong approach. That being said, all in all, these changes to the 416 feel like they will make Jäger slightly less easy to play, which would be a step in the right direction in terms of lowering his pick rate. It's definitely a mechanism that has worked in the past. For example, Ella, when she was launched, was one of the most brokenly overpowered new operators the game has ever seen, but upping the recoil on her primary weapon cured her pick rate almost instantly. Similarly, Twitch saw her pick rate normalize once the F2 became harder to handle. It's a proven method that works, but when it comes to the specific changes for Jäger that are on the TS right now, I also feel that most players will be able to adapt to these changes almost instantly, and so, will this really lower the operator's pick rate? I don't think so. We probably need to brace ourselves for more nerfs coming in future. Have you had a chance to play on the TS? What are your thoughts on these changes? Feel free to leave a comment below, and with that, I hope you enjoyed the video and I will see you in the next episode.